I'm 90 years old, and I wasted 70 years protecting a lie that nobody asked me to keep. Everything you've been told about strength is backwards. Society taught me that silence was dignity, that real men carry their burdens alone, that speaking up about what haunts you is weakness. I believed it, and it ate me alive from the inside out. I'm talking to you now because I don't have much time left. Maybe a year, maybe less. The doctors don't say it directly, but I can see it in how they look at my wife when they think I'm not watching. And honestly, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid you're going to make the same mistake I did. I'm afraid you're going to reach 90 and realize you spent your whole life hiding from the one conversation that could have saved you. Before I tell you what I kept secret, I need you to understand something. This isn't about me. This is about the decades I lost, the relationships I destroyed, the version of myself I never got to meet because I was too terrified to tell the truth. Let me be clear about why I'm here. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm not looking for sympathy. I don't need your forgiveness. I'm speaking because silence almost killed me, and I see that same silence spreading like a disease through everyone I meet. You think you're protecting people by keeping things inside. You're not. You're building a prison one brick at a time, and by the time you notice the walls, it's too late to tear them down. I'm running out of time, but you're not. Not yet. That's why this matters. If this story makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. If one person hears this and decides to speak up before it's too late, then maybe the last 70 years weren't completely wasted. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real stories from people who've lived long enough to see through the lies, subscribe to this channel. Don't do it for me. Do it because you need reminders that you're not running out of content to watch. You're running out of days to live. For 67 years, my life looked perfect from the outside. I had a career, a wife, 3 kids who grew up, got married, gave me grandchildren. I had the house with the white fence, the reliable car, the retirement account. People at church knew my name. Neighbors waved when I mowed the lawn on Saturday mornings. But inside I was hollow. Every morning I'd wake up at 5:47 a.m., same time for 40 years, and I'd sit at the edge of the bed in the dark before my wife woke up, just sitting there, staring at the carpet, feeling the weight of something I couldn't name pressing down on my chest like a hand. I'd go through the day, work, meetings, dinner, TV, bed, repeat. I perfected the smile, the handshake, the everything's fine when someone asked how I was doing, and nobody looked closer. Why would they? I had everything a man was supposed to want, but I wasn't living. I was performing. I was going through the motions of a life while the real me stayed locked in a box I'd built when I was 23 years old. And every year that box got smaller. The secret? I'll tell you, but not yet. Because you need to understand what carrying a secret does to you first. It was a Tuesday morning in March 3 years ago. I was 87. I woke up and my left arm wouldn't move right. Not paralyzed, just heavy. Wrong. My wife was already downstairs making coffee. I could smell it. I tried to stand up and the room tilted sideways like I was on a boat. I grabbed the nightstand. My wedding ring clicked against the wood. That sound. I still hear it sometimes. Click. My whole life balanced on whether I called for help or pretended everything was fine, like I'd done for 67 years. I called for help. The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. They ran tests. Heart, brain, blood. The young doctor, couldn't have been older than my youngest grandson, sat down next to my bed and said, "Mr. Peterson, you had a minor stroke. You're lucky, but your body is trying to tell you something." I looked at him, this kid with his clean white coat and his full life ahead of him, and I wanted to grab him by the shoulders and scream, "Don't do what I did. Don't wait. Don't think you have time." But I just nodded and said, "Thank you, doctor." My wife held my hand in the car ride home. Neither of us spoke. I watched the trees pass by the window, the same trees I'd driven past for 43 years, and I realized something that made my chest hurt worse than the stroke. I'd been dying for decades. Not from disease, from silence. And that's when I realized the lie I'd been living. The biggest lie isn't something someone tells you. It's the lie you tell yourself every single day until you forget it's a lie at all. I told myself, I have time. For 70 years, I said those 3 words like a prayer. I have time to deal with this later. I have time to have that conversation. I have time to tell the truth. I have time to fix things. I have time to become the person I was supposed to be. I have time is how you lose your entire life without noticing. You tell yourself you'll speak up after the promotion, after you make more money, after the kids are grown, after you retire, after things settle down. The goalposts keep moving and you keep pushing the real stuff further into the future, and then one day you're lying in a hospital bed at 87 and you realize the future you were waiting for never comes. Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually answer this in your head right now. What conversation are you avoiding? What truth are you not speaking because you think you have time to deal with it later? Still thinking about it? Good. Hold on to that, because I'm about to show you what later actually looks like. My friend Robert died 4 years ago. We worked together for 30 years. Good man. Married to Linda for 42 years. They had that kind of marriage where they finished each other's sentences, or at least that's what everyone thought. At his funeral, Linda stood up to speak. She was 79 years old. Her hands shook holding the paper with her speech written on it. She talked about Robert's career, his kids, his love of fishing. Standard funeral stuff. Then she went off script. She folded up the paper, looked out at all of us, and said, "Robert told me something 2 weeks before he died. He said he'd been unhappy for 20 years but didn't know how to tell me because he didn't want to hurt me. 20 years. He protected me from the truth, and we lost 20 years we could have spent actually fixing things." The church went completely silent. You could hear the heater humming in the corner. She said, "Don't do what Robert did. Don't do what I did. If something's wrong, say it. Today, not someday. Today." Then she sat down. That sentence followed me home. It's still following me, because that was my life too. That was the exact trap I'd fallen into. I thought I was protecting people. I thought I was being strong. I thought if I just kept quiet and held it together, everything would be fine. But silence doesn't protect people. It robs them. It robs them of the chance to help you, to know you, to love the real you instead of the performance you're putting on. So what was my secret? What did I carry for 70 years? When I was 23, I wanted to be a writer. Not a businessman, not a manager, a writer. I wrote every night after my shift at the factory. I had notebooks full of stories, characters, worlds I'd built in my head. It was the only time I felt like myself. Then I met Margaret. We fell in love fast. She got pregnant. We got married. I needed a real job, something stable, something respectable. So I took a position at an insurance company. I told myself it was temporary, just until we got on our feet. I never wrote again. I didn't tell Margaret I'd given up writing. I didn't tell anyone. I just buried it, put the notebooks in a box in the attic, and convinced myself I was being responsible, being a man, providing for my family. But here's what actually happened. I spent 67 years resenting a life I chose. I spent 67 years being angry at Margaret for something she never asked me to do. I spent 67 years pretending to be someone I wasn't, and that pretending poisoned everything. Every conversation was filtered. Every decision was made by the fake version of me. My kids grew up with a father who was there physically but absent in every way that mattered. Margaret loved a man who didn't exist. And the worst part? She would have supported me. If I'd just told her the truth, she would have helped me figure it out. We could have found a way. But I never gave her the chance because I was too afraid to be vulnerable. You want to know what I regret? Here it is. Everything that matters. I regret not taking that trip to Ireland with Margaret when we were 45. She wanted to see where her grandmother was born. I said we couldn't afford it. We could have. I just didn't want to take time off work for something that didn't feel productive. She never brought it up again. She died never seeing Ireland. I regret not calling my brother more. He lived 2 states away. We talked maybe 3 times a year. Birthdays, holidays, surface stuff. He had a heart attack at 61. Gone. And I realized I didn't actually know him. Not really. I knew the version of him from when we were kids, but I had no idea who he became as an adult because I never asked. I regret every time I said maybe later when my kids wanted to show me something. A drawing, a new trick on their bike, a book they were reading. I was always too tired, too busy, too distracted. They stopped asking eventually. Now they're 50 years old, and we talk about the weather and their jobs, and we've never had a real conversation about anything that actually matters. I regret not telling my father I loved him before he died. I thought men didn't say things like that. I thought he knew. Maybe he did, but I'll never know. And that uncertainty has haunted me for 37 years. I regret not pursuing writing. Not because I would have been successful. Maybe I would have failed completely. But at least I would have tried. At least I would have been myself. Instead, I spent 67 years wondering what if, and that question is heavier than any failure could have been. I regret not going to therapy 40 years ago when I first noticed the emptiness. I thought therapy was for weak people, for crazy people. Now I know it's for human people. People who want to understand themselves before it's too late. I regret the nights I stayed late at the office when I could have been home. I regret the silences at dinner. I regret every time I chose comfort over truth, safety over risk, performance over authenticity. You know what I don't regret? Not one single promotion. Not one deal I closed. Not $1 I made. Not one title I earned. Those things dissolved the moment they happened. They meant nothing. They still mean nothing. What matters is simpler than you think. So simple it's almost embarrassing. What matters is that Tuesday afternoon when Margaret and I sat on the porch and didn't say anything, just watched the light change through the trees. What matters is the night I drove my daughter to the hospital when she was 17, and scared, and we talked about real things for the first time. What matters is my grandson teaching me how to text 3 years ago, and both of us laughing at how bad I was at it. The moments, the small ones, the ones where you're actually present with another person. That's it. That's the whole thing. So what changed? What finally broke through? After the stroke, I started writing again. 70 years later, I bought a notebook at the drugstore, sat down at the kitchen table, and started writing. My handwriting is shaky now. My mind wanders, but I write. And last year, I told Margaret everything. The writing, the resentment, the decades of silence, the person I buried when I was 23. All of it. She cried. Then she held my hand and said, "I wish you'd told me sooner. We could have figured it out." That sentence broke something open in me. Not in a bad way, in a necessary way, like lancing a wound that's been infected for 70 years. We've had more real conversations in the last 2 years than we had in the previous 67 combined. And you know what? It's terrifying. Being vulnerable at 90 feels ridiculous, like learning to walk again. But it's also the first time in my entire life I've felt free. I started calling my kids, really talking. Not weather and jobs, real things, asking about their lives, their fears, their dreams, apologizing for the years I was absent. Some of those conversations went well, some didn't, but at least they're happening. I told my grandson about the writing. He's a software developer, totally different world, but he listened, really listened. Then he said, "Papa, it's never too late to be yourself." He's 28, and he understood something it took me 87 years to learn. Here's what I know now. The things that actually change your life aren't big. They're embarrassingly small. It's saying no to one thing that drains you, so you can say yes to one thing that fills you up. It's calling your parents before you think you need to, because one day it'll be too late, and you'll regret every call you didn't make. It's telling someone you love them out loud, even though it feels awkward, because they need to hear it and you need to say it. It's protecting your health before you lose it. I can't walk more than a block now. My knees are shot. My heart is weak. I took this body for granted for 80 years and now I'm paying the price. You think you have time to get healthy later? You don't. It's having the hard conversation today instead of next month. Next month becomes next year becomes never. It's asking for help. I spent my whole life thinking asking for help was weakness. It's not. It's the only way forward. It's choosing one person to be real with. You don't need to spill your guts to everyone, but find one person you trust and tell them the truth. Start there. And here's the thing nobody tells you. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to blow up your life. You don't have to abandon your responsibilities. I'm not saying that. I'm saying find 10 minutes a day to be yourself. 10 minutes to write, or paint, or call someone you miss, or sit quietly and actually feel what you're feeling instead of running from it. 10 minutes. That's all. Start there. See what happens. The urgency you feel right now reading this, that's real. That's your body trying to tell you something. Don't ignore it. Don't tell yourself you'll deal with it later. Later is a lie. Later is how you get to 90 and realize you never lived. I want you to do something for me. Go to the comments and tell me one thing you're going to do differently. Not someday. This week. One conversation you're going to have. One truth you're going to speak. One small thing you're going to change. And if this story meant something to you, share it. Not for me. for the person in your life who needs to hear it, the person who's carrying something they think they have to carry alone. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of these stories. Real stories from people who've lived long enough to see what actually matters. Not motivational speeches, not platitudes, just truth. I'm 90 years old. I don't have much time left, but you do. The question is, what are you going to do with it?